Hello, I'm Steph from iDriver Classic, and today we're testing a car with a difference because this is an amphibious car, which means that you can drive it on land or drive it in the water, which is why it was sold the strapline, the sports car that swims. It's the Amphicar 770. Now these are very rare this side of the water, even though they were made in Germany, because I think they were just shy of 4,000 ever made. Over 3,000 of them went to America. So to be here today at the Isle of Man Motor Museum, borrowing this Amphicar and taking it out for a test with you is rather exciting. It's been on my dream car drive list since I started iDriver Classic, and I am so excited to share it with you today. But before we get into any of that, let's have a message about our channel sponsor. Life is too short to drive something boring, so if you're looking for your first classic or your next classic, why not check out Bidding Classics Auctions? Whether it's something pre-war, mid-century, or maybe something newer like a retro hot hatchback, check out their website. There's a link in the description box below, or you can Google Bidding Classics Auctions. There's new stuff going on the website every single week, so why not check them out? Now let's go back to the video.
Now look, a lot of people see the Amphicar and think it's American for quite a few reasons. The American styling with those supersize fins that I'm going to give you a cool fact about in a bit. The vast majority of these cars were exported to America. In fact, I think it was around the 90% mark. And of course, if you know much about American history, you'll know that President Lyndon Johnson owned one of these. And allegedly it was his favourite car. He in fact used to take it from the land and drive it into the water to scare visitors, which I think is quite funny actually. Now, in fact, it wasn't an American car at all. It was a German car by a German designer. His name was Hans Trippel. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, because that's what I'm going to call him for the rest of the video. Now, you'll see loads of stuff online that he was inspired by the amphibious military vehicles of the Second World War. Things like the Volkswagen Schwimmwagen. But here's the thing. Trippel was toying with this stuff way before the war. And in fact, his early mid-1930s designs caught the eye of a man named Adolf Hitler, who then recruited, or should we say forcibly shuffled him, into the Bugatti factory. And it was there that he built amphibious cars as part of the war effort. But once the war was over, it left Trippel to pursue his passion once more. Now, if you're watching this from America, I know you bounced back quite quickly after the Second World War. Germany took a little bit more time. So with that, it makes a little bit more sense that he doesn't come back to market again until 1959, when he unveils a car which is called the Eurocar Alligator. It's powered by the same engine that they use in the Austin A35 and Morris miners of a certain age. That's the 948 A series engine. And it's not a bad engine at all. I know this from experience, and it's relatively reliable. However, it does only give you 34 brake horsepower. And so as you come into the swinging 60s, that's not moving you all that swiftly. So that's why when the Triumph Herald came to market, Trippel ditched the A series engine and he went for the Herald's 1147cc engine. It then gives him 43 brake horsepower. Remember, this is of its time, so I realise today you might think that's lacklustre, but back then that hit the mark. Now this new engine then takes Trippel back to the drawing board, and armed with quite a sizable government backing from the German government, the Amphicar 770 is unveiled to the buying public in 1961. However, it's not a cheap toy, and it retailed in the home market at roughly double the price of a Volkswagen Beetle. Now I wonder what this retailed for in America. Now the Lane Motor Museum, who are usually spot on with their facts, list the price from new in the American sales market as between being $2,800 and $3,300. And although this might seem like a very cool car today, and it really is, and many people seem to remember it very fondly, it was pretty much a commercial flop. There were sales forecasts of 20,000 units shifting throughout the factory every single year, but by the time they stopped selling them in 1968, they'd only ever managed to shift 3,878. Now I'm going to steer clear of mocking cars which don't meet their expected level of success, because when you look back you see that it's innovative ideas, experimentation and risk, which means that we get future designs, progress and discoveries. And learnings as well. And I guess the biggest learning from here is that boats are boats and cars are cars, and the crossover market just isn't where you want it to be. However, despite all this, it was a well-made car. A lot of these have rotted out due to being driven through water, and they're left with the water in it and exposed to the elements. But looking at other cars of its time, it's very well put together. It's essentially a unibody steel two-door car, but there are some cool bits like electronically welded joints. And also the fact that the ground clearance from the back means it wins the award of the highest tail fins of any production car. I know it is on a technicality. Now, less than 100 of these were ever made with a right-hand drive setup, which means that today our experience is so rare and so lucky. Now, if you want to see this in person, remember it's at the Isle of Man Motor Museum, and all the details are in the description box below.
Popping inside, I knew we were going to have a bit more than a standard 60s car. And we start off by showing you the hand throttle. Now, we're not going to use that whilst we're driving. This is reserved for only using whilst you're in water. So you won't see us touch that today. And above that, you've got your navigation lights, again, for when you're out on the water. To the left-hand side of that, you've got your wipers, and below that, a blanking plug. Now, if you're wondering what that's for, that is actually for the choke, which should have been over there. But for some reason, it's now attached in at the back seat. So has this been done with the passage of time? Was this a factory option? Who knows? Coming over from there, you've got your bilge pump, and then we have got 3 gauges to the dash here. Over on the left-hand side, you've got your fuel gauge and temperature gauge, and it's worth noting that apparently the engine doesn't get quite enough ventilation to stay cool, so it's either apparently stone cold and a bit sketchy, or it's running a little bit hot and it's a bit sketchy. So hopefully today we can find that happy middle ground where it runs all right, because we're not taking it too far, we're only taking it around the car park. And then in the middle there, you've got your speedo, and this is the perfect time actually to tell you why it's called an Amphicar 770. So it's meant to be 7 miles an hour on water and 70 miles an hour on land, hence the name. And then over to the right hand side there, you've got your clock. But what's going on elsewhere? Well, we've got a fairly good sized glove box, which I'm just going to push that in, I'll show you. Again, it's missing the glove box liner, but when it's been out on water and those glove box liners are finicky at the best of times, I'm not really surprised that it's gone. Coming into the centre here, you've got the ignition, and then over to the left hand side you've got your regular lights for when we're on land. And then over to this right hand side, now this is something that if you look at the diagrams, which is what I did for the dash layout to work out what everything is, this should be a cigar lighter, but it's now a push button, and I'm not entirely sure for what either, because when we put the key in, so this is one of the cars at the museum are still sorting out, but I said, oh please can I take it out? So they've let me take it out today, which is very good of them. So if when we put the key in, you'll see that that doesn't do anything, and unfortunately the horn isn't working either at the moment, but that's where the horn would have traditionally been situated. Now I know this is really bizarre, and this is because I'm always out in Hillman Humber stuff. I thought at first glance, I thought those are 3 spires of Coventry, but actually this was built just outside, I think it was built in Berlin and just outside Berlin, and it was built in a place called Lübeck, and this is actually Lübeck Cathedral, or what I think is Lübeck Cathedral, in the centre of the steering wheel. And everything else is kind of as you'd expect. You've got the umbrella handbrake, we've seen those in videos plenty of times before. The gearbox, so I'm going to have to move over because it's this is a bench seat and it keeps sliding off into the door. Now fit all the way down, so you've got your first, second, third and fourth, so you've got 4 forward gears, and to get it into reverse you come over and you come down. So I mean, that's all pretty standard as you would expect it to be, except that what do you do if you're on water? Because you're not going to be using your standard box. Well, down here you've got a separate control, and if you go forward, that takes you forwards on the water, and if you go back, that takes you backwards on the water. And that is pretty much everything. But there's one thing that you might have noticed when we were And we're looking around on the outside, and that is an extra clip on the doors. Now if you're wondering why that is, that's because when you're out on the water, you clip that clip along with just closing your door to pull the door seals tighter, and the idea is that it stops water coming in. I mean, I've seen 60s build quality on many cars, and the thought of taking something from the 60s like this out on water absolutely terrifies me. So let's get it started up. Remember, we've got that Triumph engine in that I was telling you about. Let's check it's in neutral. It's quite quiet actually, to say that we're in a convertible. We're going to go on a very small adventure around the car park. Now I've been told that we need to set off in first, and I'm quite short, so I'm going to skip forward a little bit. There we go, we're in first, and we need to hold it in there because she likes to pop out apparently. There we go. Let's get her up into second. Now as we come round, I will warn you that the accelerator is quite stiff, so it's creating a bit of a jerky drive. But even at these slow speeds, we get a bit of a feel for what it must have been like when all these incredible people were living brilliant lives in the 1960s, out on the rivers, journeying around in these, and driving this. You get a bit of a sense of what it must have been like, because we've got that lovely sun coming down on us today, we've got that sea breeze that's coming in, so we get a bit of a feel for what it must have been like both on road and out on those rivers as well. Now the one thing I will say is, and it's caught me by surprise, is the handling is so good on this. Even at slow speeds, it's very light, it's very responsive, and realistically, the only thing that lets it down for me is that I can't take it out on the water. Now, I would love to take it out, and I'm sure the museum team would too. But a little fact for you is there are no expanses of fresh water in the Isle of Man big enough to take this out for a drive. And no one's going to be taking it out of the sea, because we all know what happens when salt hits metal. Now, as we come round, and I know it's a very sedate drive today, now as you can see, she's a little bit fussy today. Now I'm guessing that is because that accelerator is a little bit sticky. But look, she doesn't come out much. She hasn't done any great driving, and she is one of the works in progress within the museum. Because that's the great thing about this place, is they actually work on all the stuff that you see exhibited, so they do work to it, they try and bring it on. So whilst they're custodians and they've got stuff on display, they're also custodians in every sense of the word, because they try and improve the vehicles that are here as well. And this Amphicar is on the long list of cars that are set to be improved and worked upon. But I begged and pleaded and said, please let us take her out in her current state. So hopefully when we come back and visit the museum again, she'll have had a bit of work done and she'll be driving a little bit more smoothly. But I hope today's little video has given you a bit of a sense of what it's like to drive an Amphicar. So all round, very easy to handle. Steering is very responsive. She cruises down without too much care. And I think with just a few bits of fettling, I think she'd be great for going out in a cruise. And I can see totally why she was a big hit with the Americans, because this styling is not German at all, really, is it? It feels American both in the colours, and I think this one's fjord green, or it was originally. I think it's had a bit of a paint touch up. And every colour that's picked, all the styling, all the way through to those ginormous fins at the back, it's American through and through. Now we're going to take her back to the museum now and say goodbye to her with great regret, because I would love to take this out for a bit more of an adventure, because what a car, what a bit of history, and what a privilege to take her out today. So thank you very, very much to the Isle of Man Motor Museum team for letting us take her out. She has been one of my favourite things that we've tested in a while, but until next time, when we're testing, I think we're testing something else from the collection. Take care and drive safely.